Okay, so in this video, we are going to be looking at the Bento Stack. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building out this layout that we have inside of the Bento demo. This is also the layout that's been used for years on the Weaverspace homepage. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Now, edit mode for Bento is different than any other stack you've probably used. At the top here, we have an entire grid designer that we can design and customize for each breakpoint. We have extra small, small, medium, and large. Now, if we look at the grid that we want to build, we actually want to start off and design what our grid is going to look like on mobile devices. So I'm going to use the device viewer from our measure stack, and I'm going to go ahead and select an iPhone 15. And that will open up this particular demo for our mobile layout. So let's go ahead and build this. Now, when we're designing grids for Bento, essentially what we want to do is we want to think of an underlying table, such as like an Excel table, where we have to find the smallest cell that we have. And in this example, it's these boxes that are down in the lower left-hand corner. And if you'll notice here, if this is one cell, here in this particular layout, we're going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 columns wide. Okay. And let's look at how many rows of content we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of content. So on mobile, we want this to be a 4x4 grid. So if we notice here inside Bento, I'm going to go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to start off with extra small, which is the default. And we're going to define the number of columns as 4. And we want the number of rows to also be 4. Now here we can also customize the gutter for columns and rows as well. And number of items, let's just leave that at 0 for now. Let's go ahead and build out this layout and you'll see how easy and fun this actually is. So below our grid designer, you'll notice that we have Bento item number 0 by default. And let's go ahead and change that to be item number 1. If you notice here, when I changed the item to be number 1, it actually highlighted that directly in here inside edit mode, inside of our grid designer, which is really cool. Now let's go ahead and define the sizing for this. If we look at our original layout, we actually want this to be 2 columns wide. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to set columns to be 2. And basically what we can do is we can add another Bento item. We can go ahead and set that to be number 2. And I want number 2 to also be 2 columns wide. So we're going to set columns wide for extra small to be 2. Let's just keep on adding items. We're going to add in number 3. And item number 3 is going to be 4 wide because this particular item is going to take up the entire width of my grid. So what I can do is I can make that columns 4. And then here we have number 4 and number 5. Those are also these smaller areas. So we're going to go 4, 5, and then 6 is going to be foundation. So let's start building those out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste number 3. We're going to make that number 4. But that one's just going to be 1. Right? And we're going to copy paste and make that one number 5. And then we're going to copy paste that one, make that number 6. But now number 6 is foundation. This one's going to be 2 wide and 2 tall. So this is going to be, it's going to take up 2 columns and 2 rows. And if we look at the grid, we're getting very close to what our layout is here, which is really cool. Let's go ahead and add our last 2, which is number 7 and number 8, which is just going to be a 1. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate number 5 and just make that content number 7. And we can go here and copy and paste that. And that has number 8. So there we go. I now can populate all of these items with actual content, and we'll do that shortly. But I just want to get you really quick to show you how we actually design these. And let's go ahead and I can customize these colors as well. What you'll notice is the colors match. Okay, we have a highlight color here inside the settings, and that color will be displayed up here, as well as in the label of each individual item. you'll see it actually tells you which item number it is being used inside the grid. So let's say for like number 3, let's go ahead and change that highlight color. Let's make that one maybe blue. And then maybe like 4, 5, 7, and 8. I am selecting all of them just by holding down the Option key. And let's make those like an orange color. Right? So now here I have my little layout. So I kind of have, 1, 2, and 6 are kind of, they're kind of similar size-wise. And then 4, 5, 7, and 8 are small. So we can kind of visualize our grid a little bit here in edit mode. And as you see, the colors directly for each item will change as well. So it's easy to kind of locate them so you can see where your items are going to be placed within the grid. Now we had skipped a setting earlier, and you'll notice that it is the extra small items. And in this, basically, after you build out your grid, you should put in here the number of items that we have. So in this case, I'm going to say we have 8 items. I'm going to click 8. Now, before we move on to the next breakpoints, I do want to show if you click on the plus button here, you can actually customize the actual breakpoints that will be used within the Bento layout. So we're not going to cover all these right now. We'll cover those in a separate video. But just to let you know that you can customize the breakpoints that are used for your responsive layouts. So now that we have our extra small layout built, essentially what we need to do is we need to go to the other breakpoints and define those layouts as well. So what we'll do now is we're going to go into small. And now for me, I just want extra small and small to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to copy this out. So I'm going to say we had 8 items. We have a 4x4. Okay. And let's do maybe our gap will be a little bit bigger. Let's do 15 for our gutter. So now extra small and small are going to have basically the same layout. But now we want to change things up for medium. So we're going to go up to medium. You notice that things are a little wonky right now. So let's bring up what our medium grid is going to look like. So we're going to go over here and let's swap this to be, let's say, an iPad. So as a reminder, here is the layout that we want for medium and large devices. And what we want to do is we want to find the smallest common denominator for our cell size, right? And it's going to be, for this particular layout, the smaller items here. So if this was to be one item, let's go, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one is 4. So we're going to have 8 wide, and height-wise, we're going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 tall. So our grid here, our underlying kind of grid is going to be 4 rows by 8 columns. So let's go ahead and build that. So I know I'm going to keep the same number of medium items. So let's set that to 8. And then I said we wanted number of columns was going to be 8 and number of rows was going to be 4. Okay. And let's leave our gutters for medium at 20 pixels. Okay. So what we now need to do is we need to go through all of our items and adjust the sizing. So if we look at our sizing, before we had only modified the default sizing, which is for extra small. And if you remember the small sizing, we wanted it to be exactly the same as extra small. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that as inherit, which is the default setting. So for small, it's going to inherit from extra small. But on medium, we want different sizing. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on size. So for bento item number 1, what size do we want? Let's have a look at that again. So if we look at this layout, essentially, if you look at this icon here, it's about the same size as these 4. So basically, I want this to be a 2 by 2. And I'm going to want that for number 1, number 2, and then number 6. Let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to number 1. I'm going to highlight number 1, number 2, and number 6. And we're going to go ahead and set the medium size to be 2 columns wide and 2 rows tall. There we go. Perfect. All right. Now, number 3. Okay, number 3, if you remember, that was the really big one, right? That's kind of like, and what that was is going to be a 4 by 4. So it's going to take up pretty much half the grid. It's going to be 4 columns wide and 4 rows tall. Let's go ahead and set that. We're going to set custom sizing for medium, and we're going to set that to be a 4x4. And just like that, magic, our grid is now done, right? If we look at this grid layout, it's exactly what we had defined and what we designed inside of our layouts. And like I said, just we did from extra small to small, I want my large grid to be exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is here is we're going to large items is 8, and we're going to do 8 columns, not 88, and 4. And there we go. Now, all of our items, we don't need to tweak those because we want the large to inherit from medium. But I want to tweak things a little bit. I thought it would be fun to show you. If you notice, there are 2 options here for sizing. We have size and position. So I can do for large, just for let's say number 3. I want to adjust the position a little bit. Okay. Let's say on large devices, I'm going to go ahead and change the position. And I want the sizing to be, still want it to be 4x4. Okay. But what we now have access to is position. We can define where this is going to be located. So by default, it's going to be 1 and 1. So if we have this to be a 4x4 cell, the position is going to be start at column 1, row 1. But we can also start it at column 2 or column 3, right? So let's say we wanted that, right? So now on medium, this large one is going to be off, again, flush to the right. But then on large, it's going to move and change its position so that it's actually centered within the grid. So that's the kind of slightly more advanced position setting. Again, you can customize the sizing as well as the starting position of that particular item. So let me go ahead and populate these with content, and let's preview our grid. Okay, so what I've done here is I've just added some containers and header from my free starter pack, and just added some gray boxes that just have a number in them so we can kind of see those item numbers. Let's go ahead and preview this. So here we are in preview, and we can now see our grids. Now I have a measure stack on this page to kind of show us where we are in our breakpoints, right? So right now we're in small, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? All right here. Now what you might notice is number 6, it kind of looks a little odd because it's not actually stretching its content. We're going to look at that really quick. Essentially by default, what's going on is Bento has reserved this space for our content, but by default, Bento is going to center our content, but we can easily make that stretch. So if we look at our project, let's go ahead and look at number 6, and I'm going to take the alignment option. As you see, the default is middle. I'm just going to go ahead and set that to be stretch. And if we refresh the page, we'll see that voila, number 6 is now stretching its height so that it's exactly the layout that we were expecting. Let's go ahead and make our grid a little bit larger. And we have a little issue. We kind of have a similar issue with number 3, right? But we know the easy fix for that. We're just going to straight go into number 3. We're going to set the alignment to be stretch. Refresh our page, and voila, there we go. All right. And let's just keep going. And there we are. Now you might be looking at this grid and be thinking, wait, but number 1 and number 2, they're kind of not the same height as number 6. What's going on there? So essentially what's going to happen is Bento is going to react to whatever content you add into it. Here, I just have something very simple. It's just a gray box with a header. But as you put more content, either with paragraphs or with images, Bento is going to morph the sizes of our grid and dynamically make it all look uniform based on the rules that we've defined. So if we look here at the Bento demo that we built, remember we built this exact grid. Essentially, what's making these items taller is the images as well as padding that I've added, right? If you'll notice down here, it's just the images, there's no words. So that's going to make those particular items smaller. Have I had titles in this that would make each of these taller, which then in turn make the foundation one taller, right? So it's going to all kind of mesh, and grid will dynamically figure out the height that it needs to create for its containers, and it's going to make everything look uniform.